is really interesting and really nice to see, that they're offering people, traveling, for people to get from one state to another, travel expenses, and statements that they don't support the way that the politics is going in America at the moment. It's nice to see the games industry sort of rally around and all have the same thing to say, which is nice.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Polygon Forest. I am Ubisoft concept artist Vin Hill, and I'm joined as ever by the acrylic pixel indie developer himself, COVID-riddled Christopher Jarvis.
Hello, I'm infected today.
I'm infected today. That's not really a sentence that anyone wants to really say out loud, I guess.
No, it's not something I would wish on anyone, and yeah, I'm here, I'm infected, but I'm starting to feel better today, so I thought I could persevere. With today's episode, so I'm sacrificing this for you, Vin, and viewers and listeners, so you're welcome.
Yeah, so please send your well wishes to Chris in the comments. I'm sure they appreciate them. Or don't.
Yeah.
And just show that you don't really care that much. I mean, I'm sure it'll be fine. You look quite peachy. You're on a podcast. You can't be hurting that bad, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I can sit here and listen to you talk to me about Fromsoft games. Yeah,
absolutely,
that's fine.
Fair enough, I guess. Now that we're coming towards the end of June, it's a bit of a weird. We were just talking about this in the pre-show, but it's been a bit of a weird sort of week because we're in June. Normally in June, it's just news heavy. There's so much going on that we would normally be picking this stuff apart for weeks, pretty much. But with the absence of people like Nintendo and Sony from the sort of not E3 period, we sort of had this window over the past couple of weeks where just nothing has happened at all. It's sort of this week has been really dry for news.
Yeah, just reactionary stuff that's been happening, which we'll get into. But yeah, nothing that the games companies have been working on and wanted to show us, which is odd because in E3 season, it's week after week, there's newsworthy tidbits. And maybe that's because in E3 season, the marketing machine was a well-oiled machine and there was something that games journalists could talk about week on week, but it seems like they've got a week off this week. Well, unless they're talking about what we're going to be talking about, the abortion, the most un-video gamey thing you can think of.
Yeah, it is a thing. We shouldn't be talking about it. We don't normally lean towards political stuff in this podcast, but it's kind of hard to ignore this just purely with the way that the games industry has reacted to it, and that's the sort of angle that we're going to take with it more than anything, is that there's been a lot of outcry. If you have been living under a rock, the Supreme Court of the United States decided in their infinite wisdom that they should overturn Roe v. Wade, which is the right to have an abortion in the United States on a federal level. Still has state rights to it, but there's obviously going to be movement to sort of squash that at some point as well. And people are obviously very worried and very nervous. And the games industry, I have to be saying I'm quite proud of the fact that they did come out en masse, pretty much. It was kind of instantaneously. They had this lined up and they were ready to go, obviously, because we had the leak of the sort of ruling from the Supreme Court back in February or May or whenever the hell it happened. And when that happened, we saw they sort of had the heads up, so they had the donations ready, they had the things ready. But regardless of all of the market and fluff, it's nice that they just showing their support on a corporate level, I guess. But
yeah, for companies to say that something that's happened in the government they don't agree with, and that they're going to be helping their employees to sort of circumvent anything that the politics want to happen. Is really interesting and really nice to see, that they're offering people, traveling, for people to get from one state to another, travel expenses, and statements that they don't support the way that the politics is going in America at the moment. It's nice to see the games industry sort of rally around and all have the same thing to say, which is nice.
Yeah. So, we'll give a few examples here. Bungie came out and said, "We are undeterred in our commitment to stand up for reproductive choice and liberty." yeah, and these are sort of endless. They go on and on and on. Many of these companies have also donated, or they've decided to match donations. Like I saw a tweet from Neil Druckmann, obviously of Naughty Dog fame. And he came out and said, "Yeah, I'm going to donate $5,000," and Sony matched that $5,000, and it became 10. Just like, yeah, we're going to submit this to abortion advocate groups. And so, and there's been a lot of that. Like Insomniac have sort of jumped in with that. All Sony's studios en masse have sort of come out, and I think a lot of that has been backlash. Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, it's a good thing that there was backlash back in when the original ruling leaked at the start of the year, because Sony obviously had some bad press around that, especially Jim Ryan, who reportedly saying he was trying to forbid people from making public statements about the abortion rights issue, and he just got a ton of backlash from that. I was just like, yeah, no, that's not cool, Jim. Like we're not gonna, nobody's really gonna stand. Like you're either with us or against us on this one. Which
it's a very polarizing issue. You can't really be indifferent, really, can you?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious by this point, like the way I feel about it anyway. Like I have an American wife. Like she woke up yesterday with less rights than she did the day before. That being the case, like I'm obviously very angry in terms of like how my wife is being treated right now. And it's just like if we ever return to the United States and we are having problems with a baby or something like that, and like we have to go through the unfortunate circumstance of either through choice or not through choice to have an abortion, then it's going to be a hell of a lot harder, and maybe even in some cases illegal, to the point that my wife could get sued for homicide or something. You know, like this is like the way that it's sort of going. That's obviously, like, people would say that's hyperbolic, but you know, the whole idea of Roe v. Wade being overturned was hyperbolic last week as well. So, but here we are.
It was all unthinkable. Like I was never expecting it to happen at all. And I don't think anyone in the UK was, because it's not even an issue. I mean, it's like to the same scale, but from what we in the pre-show we were talking about, you know, vast majority of Americans don't want this ruling to have been overturned.
Like, less than 30% wanted it overturned. So
it's just confusing. It just feels like a defeat. And shocking. And the rest of the world is kind of shocked as well. That's what the newspapers are saying today in the UK. That the story is that the rest of the world, you know, speaks out in shock at what's happening in America, because it's shocking that, you know, the head of the, you know, Western world, democracy, Western society seems to be moving backwards morally. It's just against the majority of the people's will. It's just. Yeah,
I mean, it's highly debatable if they are the leaders in freedom and liberty at this point. Like, being blunt about it, like it's kind of hard to defend them in this respect. Like we're both British. Like, I don't live in the UK at the moment. You do. It's just like comparatively, we have a lot more freedom and rights and access to healthcare and all this sort of stuff in the UK. And it's just like at the cost of what, an extra 10% in taxes. Like, I'd happily pay for that for the freedoms that we have in the UK. So it's sort of it's very, very strange, and it's very, very backwards, and it's sort of unthinkable at this point. And that's why, like, again, that's why so many of these companies have sort of come out. Go through a few more of these. Obviously, all of the Sony studios, like after the backlash from Jim Ryan, because he was an idiot and he shouldn't have done that, and he sort of learned his lesson in that respect, I guess, allowed the studios of Insomniac, Ben Studio, Media Molecule, Sucker Punch, Guerrilla, Naughty Dog, San Diego Studio, Santa Monica Studio, and the London studio all came out with different statements on social media, like throughout Twitter and stuff, just talking about what, like, everyone else should be talking about right now, which is, you know, productive freedom and bodily autonomy, or human rights, as Media Molecule would put it. And they've all got statements, like, putting this sort of stuff out. And outside of that, outside of Sony, there's obviously, like, the bigger third parties like EA and Ubisoft have also put out statements to sort of express their dismay at this. Some people are a bit more blunt about it. NYXL is a company which they were a bit more blunt about it. I'm showing it on the screen right now. It's got some colourful language, to say the least. I don't blame them, honestly. Like, sort of the feeling that a lot of people have got right now. Yeah, which is an FU to each of the justices that thought this was going to be a good idea. Yeah, a few people have that control over
instigating the wishes of 30% of a population is just ridiculous, in my opinion. That's just not how democracy should work.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that it's similar adjoining industries are doing the same thing. In this article, it's saying about Sony and Netflix and Disney and Paramount, Warner Brothers and Amazon. So it seems like companies are getting together and corporations, all saying, this is not good. We're going to try and do everything we can to spend our money to get this, to circumvent it at the very least, and voicing their disapproval of this ruling. So.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of people that are putting their money where their mouth is, not just in terms of the donations to the groups, but they've openly said that if we have any employees in any of these states, we are going to pay for them to be able to fly to a place to be able to have an abortion if they so choose, or like if they have to, or if it's just a personal choice or whatever. Like, we will help them to do so. And so like that, like some companies saying, yeah, we'll pay up to $4,000. Like there's other places that have said, yeah, we'll pay up to 10. We'll pay for hotels and all this sort of stuff, and we'll help them out. We will get through this sort of thing. So there's a lot of positive energy coming out of not just the games industry, but as you said, like a lot of corporate companies, because I think we've seen the power of that. Like obviously since the invasion from Russia of Ukraine, like the way that corporate companies pulled out of Russia was just en masse. That was sort of like, yeah, that was a powerful thing. Because
huge, crippling. Yeah, power of the corporation is they have power. They are ruled by the laws of the land, but they have power, like power to withdraw. They vote with their feet, and they've got some big shoes. Corporations have got a lot of money.
Yeah,
then money talks. So I've heard reports that Russia are potentially coming up to a position where they might be defaulting on their loans they have with some other countries. So
yeah, I think that's due today or something. I think it was pretty recent. It's pretty soon though.
Yeah. So to take that as an example of what could be happening in America, I don't know how you can't really do business with America.
Yeah, I mean, you can be a bit more surgical about it though. You can sort of say, okay, we're going to stop doing things with companies that like mostly work in the states that ban abortion and stuff like that. So if you say, for example, like we're not gonna give our games to Walmart, for example, because they mostly work in like rural areas in the United States, stuff like that. I'm not suggesting that's what they should do or anything, but like you can be quite surgical about that sort of thing and say, hey, we're just not going to sell to Walmart anymore because like they mostly operate in these areas. So like we're not going to support these states that support like abortion rights and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see what the next step would be outside of just donations and helping each other, like see what actions they can take on the offensive in that respect. Like, because I'm sure it's coming. I'm sure they're thinking about it. It's just how they go about it is a different question.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. And it's weird that this is a video game podcast and that it's relative to the video game industry.
Yeah.
It's that far-reaching, and it's...
We shouldn't be talking about this. We should not be talking... Like, that's the blunt end of it. We should not be talking about this. Like, there's absolutely no reason why. It's 2022. We should not be talking about this. But here we are. And we have to talk about it.
We've talked about war, and now we're talking about abortion, and it's just like, what the heck?
Yeah.
War in Europe and abortions. Yeah. It's just... I don't understand the world at the minute. It's just a bit...
It's all a bit skew-iffy.
It's a bit skew-iffy, isn't it? But we were talking about this in the pre-show. We didn't really come to an understand. We didn't really know for sure. But it's interesting that this article has come out around this news story has happened now around the Supreme Court. It's in the middle of like E3 season, as it were.
Yeah.
And yet there's not much gaming news. And we were thinking, is it that the gaming companies saw that this was going to happen and like try to dodge this sort of time period to let this story aerate, or is it that they were just thinking that, or were they thinking, yeah, we need this extra week because of what happened with the Skyrim announcement and the Xbox Bethesda showcase, and let that play out for another week because it's arguably one of the biggest news stories of the year? Or was it that the companies are thinking, we missed a trick. There's this week where not much news coverage is happening. We were expecting, because it's E3 season and historically, every week is jam-packed full of announcements. And I guess that's the most gamey sort of angle we can take on this
Yeah, was it a choice
on
by
this
the
weird story.
companies to sort of avoid this story? Because this is the funny thing about it. Like, yeah, there's probably an element of two sides of this coin. Like, so there's the first side, which is, yes, it's E3 season, quote unquote, and traditionally E3 season means that June is normally just packed from end to end sort of thing, and people are just like either looking at that as like the golden window or like the window where they should stay the hell away, because there's just too much going on and everything that you're going to announce as a smaller studio is just going to get absolutely drowned out. No one's going to see it. So it's better to hold off until July or something. Did everyone just get that memo all at once? And like the second half of June was just like, all right, where the hell did everyone go? Sort of thing. And just nothing's happening. Or the other side of that coin is that the leak from the Supreme Court, which happened early in the year, sort of gave everyone a nod, and everyone knew that it was going to be the end of June, that this sort of ruling was going to eventually come down and sort of explode, and everyone knew that this was going to get all eyes on, and rightfully so. Like, it's been trending nonstop since it happened. Like, it's number one on Twitter right now, and it's probably going to stay there for a good while. And did publishers sort of see that as a thing that was like, we should stay the hell away from that, because it's just going to be, everything's going to be swamped out from that. So like, we should let that breathe in that respect. Yeah, curious, I guess. But
yeah, or were the marketing teams like pulling together their responses, and were they spending their time and resources on getting those messages out on all the different platforms and channels, and arranging money to send through to the good causes, and is that where they were spending their resources this week? That's probably part of that as well. So it's probably a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I would assume so. Like, I'm sure it's not any one thing. Like, and I sure as hell don't believe that it is just like, this is the luck that sort of everything just landed in this way. Marketing teams are smart people. They keep an eye on like public issues. Like, this is why you don't release anything around like elections in the US and stuff. Like, no games come out that week, sort of thing, for good reason. Because everyone else is kind of busy, and this definitely falls into that category. So yeah, they knew
voting as well. Voting week.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, it's a funny old business.
Yeah. So that's a bit of a sad one to talk about. It's not fun,
unfortunately.
Yeah. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, there is no words for it. That's the thing. Like, I'm angry as hell. Like, I have an American wife, and it's just the conversations that we've had over the past few days, where I've just tried to listen to her because she's just seething, and rightfully so. It's a weird situation. Just shouldn't have happened. The vast majority of Americans don't want it. The vast majority of the world don't want it. Obviously, like, it's nothing to do with the rest of the world. It's everything to do with Americans. But if the vast majority of Americans don't want it, and the current power is the White House, the House and the Senate are all like leaning towards Democratic people who that absolutely don't want this, then why the hell did the Supreme Court like just decide to like go against all of that? Like, there's just very, very strange, very bizarre situation going on in the United States right now, and I hope that it gets back on track, because the whole world wants the United States to succeed, obviously, but this is not the right way forward to do that, in my opinion. But there it is.
No, well, it's going backwards. You've had 50 years of this the way of life, and it's like, yeah, there was no problem. The way it was for 50 years, that like 70% of the people were probably happy about it for 50 years.
Yeah, I mean, you can you can give people freedoms every day of the week. You can give them more freedoms every day of the week, and you can vote on that and pass those laws, and people will be happy about that. But to take freedoms away, it's a different beast altogether. Look at prohibition. This will not last. And that's not like a happy thing. Like, oh, it's not going to last, don't worry about it. No, a lot of women are going to die in the interim of it's not going to last, sort of thing. So it's not anything to scoff at. It's just you taking people's freedoms away never ends well. So, yeah, we'll leave it there anyway. We'll get away from this subject. I know people didn't like tune into a gaming podcast to listen to this, but yeah, it's kind of hard not to mention at some point, especially when the rest of the games industry is speaking up about it, which is a good thing. I guess, yeah, we should move on to some other news. Like the main piece of news that came out, which everyone's sort of like raised their eyebrows at considering the timing of this sort of thing. But Fromsoft have got some news apparently. But Miyazaki came out in an interview with 4gamer.net, which is a Japanese news site, talking about what they're sort of up to and recently. But Miyazaki, the main sort of guy for From Software, and I'll sort of show the translated version of this because it's a bit more digestible, I guess. Apparently, he's got an unannounced title in its final stages of development. That's coming out soon, I suppose. Like, it's probably going to get announced like before the end of the year. If it's in its quote unquote final stages, that means that it's in late alpha or at least beta, meaning that it's on the way, which a lot of people didn't know about it. And yeah, it's kind of nuts because Elden Ring obviously only came out this year, only came out about 4 months ago. People are loving it. It's probably going to get a Game of the Year nomination, which, you know, is, we'll see by the end of the year if it's worthy of it. Like, so far it absolutely is. So yeah, is it a bit too soon for another Souls game? Like, I'm not sure. I
don't know. I think it's getting to that point where it's starting to branch off, and it was its own. It was one thing, and you could describe it quite well. But since you know Elden Ring, then it's become it's starting to branch off, isn't it? Because you've got like the diehard Souls fans, and then you've got Bloodborne fans, and that's slightly different game. And I think they're like drilling down on what makes them unique, and the future of these type of games could be quite branching. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was something new and different, and unique in that quote unquote Souls like ilk, as it were. So I guess hard is the only thing I can think which draws those all together.
Yeah.
Like really, really hard, because you haven't got bottlenecks anymore. That was one thing that was like...
Yeah, I mean, if they made this alongside Elden Ring, like, are both of them an open world game? Probably not. Like, this thing that's in final development is probably like more of a traditional Souls-like, I would assume.
It's like really, really bottlenecky, except what makes it different is it's super easy.
Yeah.
So it's like a Souls game where you just walk around in dungeons, but it's like literally one corridor.
Yeah.
And each boss is just one hit.
People would play that. People would still play it. I mean, it's software From Software can do no wrong at this point. So
if they had the name on it, yeah.
My only assumption is that the main thing that it could be, I guess, like if they've been working on this since, because they normally only work on 2 games at once, is quite traditionally sort of said. Like Elden Ring and Sekiro were sort of worked on at the same time, and then when Sekiro was done, then they shifted off onto another project.
Right.
And that's the project that's in its final stages at this point. That being the case, like, I think the thing that jumps to mind is Bloodborne. If there's a second Bloodborne game, then that sort of lines up with
like Bloodborne 2.
Yeah, exactly. Like, why not?
Interesting.
Right?
Bloodborne. They don't copy and paste the characters again like they do the enemies.
Yeah, I mean, Bloodborne does need like a graphical update at some point, but it still holds up. I just recently finished it again after Elden Ring, and it probably could do with a sequel. Like, it wouldn't surprise me, because it's probably my favorite Fromsoft game. It's the most balanced in terms of everything that you sort of did, but still wasn't like a 10 out of 10 or anything for me, but it was probably my favorite Souls game, to say the least. But
it could be a remake, or like not a remake. It could be like, it could just be a digital upgrade, because there's not been much media hype around it, and it's not been any leaking or anything like that. No leaks I can heard of. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was just like, maybe a PS5 version of a game or something.
Yeah, they were pretty specific. They said, this is the quote, it says, when we interviewed you about Sekiro Shadows Die Twice in 2018, you said there were 3.5 development lines underway. 2 of them were unannounced. Elden Ring ended up one of the unannounced titles, as the other one still in development. It says, yes, development is currently in its final stages. So it's an unannounced title. He was quite specific about that. So that's the only thing to that. So, but I mean, Bloodborne could absolutely get an update, and if it was Bloodborne 2, then how else better to announce Bloodborne 2 than to say, hey, by the way, there's a free upgrade coming out. PS5 version of Bloodborne is out now, 60 FPS, all that sort of good stuff. Play at 4K. That'd be a good way to announce it, and a lot of people have been screaming for that, and sort of curious why that hasn't come about, considering most of other first-party studios from Sony have sort of upgraded their games, other than, God damn it, Gen Design. Like, would you please give us an update for The Last Guardian, please? That would be nice. So Bloodborne is probably the top of my list. I'm guessing that's what it is. I would assume that. Like, if it was a new IP, we probably would have heard more about it at this point, because when it comes to new IP, you want to announce them as early as possible, because you want to
sort of hype going.
Yeah, you need to generate that sort of stuff. That's not something that you can just like drop and be like, yeah, it's out this year, because people know what it is already. Like, you can do that with like a Fallout or something like that, but for a new IP, so I'd assume it's a sequel to something, and Bloodborne sort of lines up the best for that.
Yeah, it makes the most sense, I suppose. It's the most different to Elden Ring, isn't it? So if you were planning things, that's the two that you'd want to land similarly, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Who knows? Similar sort of time frame. Who knows?
Who knows? Who knows?
We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, if it is Bloodborne 2, I'll be happy about it, but we shall see. Indeed. But other than that, it's been quite a slow
episode, isn't it?
Short episode, yeah. So I figured
short episode.
I thought we could talk about what we've been playing a little bit, I guess, at least, just because we've sort of missed out on that over the past month, pretty much. Like, we haven't really spoken about like what we've actually been playing. So I'll start off with you, Chris. I know your list is quite short, but what have you been playing, if anything?
A couple of weeks ago, I did talk about Shadow of the Colossus and Journey, so I have been playing that. But I thought I'd take this opportunity to talk about a specific mechanic in Horizon Forbidden West. So spoilers ahead, it's towards the end of the game.
Shock.
It's when you get the pterosaur, when you can ride the robot pterosaur, so you have to complete a fairly big campaign mission before you get the ability to ride that, and it's, you know, you have to do that story mission to complete the game, so it's not like a desirable it's an unlockable mechanic at a certain point in the game story.
Yeah,
it's towards the end, so you would have done lots of stuff up until this point. I was just curious as to what your initial thoughts were because you've played it, you've got that far, right? So you've ridden on the pterosaur and you've flown around a bit. What were your thoughts on introducing such a unique mechanic that, firstly, I was surprised by how it felt. I was surprised by the mechanics. I was surprised by the buttons and how you control it. And yeah, what were your thoughts when you got that far?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, this is a funny one, because whenever you have an open world game and they give you like this level of freedom just randomly, and it's like, there you go, you can do anything now. And they do this a lot in Final Fantasy as well, where they say, like, oh, you're walking around the map like really slowly, constantly, and then towards the very end of the game, like, oh, here's an airship and you can just fly anywhere now, sort of thing. And just when it gives you that freedom, it's like, Jesus, okay, I can go everywhere now. But at the same time, you get really annoyed by it, just purely because, like, you remember all that time that you've spent on the ground, running around on the floor below you, going from checkpoint to checkpoint, just to like get this at the end. It's sort of like a slap in the face. It's like, haha, that was all that wasted time, sort of thing. So it kind of felt the same with this, but yeah, I mean, it's always great to get like that level of freedom. But yeah, how about you? Like, what are your thoughts on it?
I don't know. I don't know what I was expecting. It was like, wow, that's an impressive challenge to make it feel nice. And it felt a bit clunky. It felt a bit slow. And as soon as I got it, I was like, oh, there was this again, and not anything that I enjoy. They set up the side mission where they go, oh, there's a bloke. He held onto one of those dinosaur pterosaurs and he flew up a mountain. Oh, I bet he's got some interesting armor. Oh, well, no, it's a shame there's no way to climb up there, considering that you can climb.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you can't climb up there. So those are several things going on wrong. The fact that there's a story mission that they entice you with that they tell you can't do yet, that then your character goes, oh, one day maybe I'll get up there. It's like, it's so beyond the fourth wall. It's like, it's basically the main character going, yeah, you can't go up there yet.
Yeah.
Just completely breaking the illusion, like not even trying to climb up there.
Yeah, like the gameplay that I'm showing right now is one of the tall necks. The only way you can climb onto it is by landing on it from a pterosaur.
Landing on it, yeah.
And it's quite an early on one that you see, like it's in the desert portion of the game, and you're just like, what the hell? Like, why can't it? And I remember being at that point, just like looking at this pterosaur, like, all right, there has to be a trick to get on top of this thing. And I was there for a good 30 minutes. just running around, be like, okay, maybe
trying
I can
to find some higher ground,
right?
Like where
to glide
where does
onto
the
maybe,
train...
and like no, like okay, that's too far away. Maybe you upgrade the glider later on. It's like no, she would have mentioned that or something. I might have seen it somewhere. It's like no, okay, and just wandering around trying to figure out the puzzle that they've sort of given you.
And the amount of time she gives you away the puzzle elements, it's like,
and then she doesn't mention
not to have a,
yeah.
I can't do this yet. Yeah. It's so there was a few things that fell down for me around the pterosaur, and I thought, oh great, I can fly anywhere. And then I was initially like, wow, this is really slow. And then I started using the campfires. I was like, I want to go from here to here. And I was flying over the train. And then I was like, it would be quicker to use the campfires anyway. So then I was using the campfires, and then I'd have to find a space where the pterosaur could pick me up to then fly up. And that was like, okay. And then it wouldn't let me land in a village. And I was just like, it's just like,
why?
Okay, like this is not like the experience I don't think the designers probably wanted, like anticipated.
Yeah, they must have spent a long time thinking, because like it's one of those mechanics, you put that into a game and you realize that
maybe.
Yeah, like right at the end you realize that like most of the work that goes into that is figuring out where they can't use it versus where they can use it. And like it, and you can feel that a lot, like when you're trying to use it, to the point that it's like, screw it, I'll just use campfire, I won't even bother, sort of thing. But like it has got that Metroidvania sort of feeling to it, which if you're going to make a Metroidvania, make a Metroidvania game. Like don't like half-ass it and put it into an open world game like this. It really annoys me when they do that. But because the way that Metroidvania games, like if you come across something that you know you can't get past yet, like you are fully aware because you're playing a Metroidvania game. Like this is the game, that's the loop that you're in. You're constantly coming across stuff that is inaccessible to you, and you know at some point or another you're going to be able to gain access to that through whatever ability or whatever like piece of equipment, and you're fine with that because that's what you're used to. Whereas in games like Horizon, where they sprinkle that Metroidvania thing in, it's like you come across puzzles, you're like, okay, I genuinely don't know if I need something that I haven't got yet, or if there's an actual puzzle here that I need to solve. And it sometimes takes a long time for you to make that connection. Like, I clearly need a thing at this point. And it's just, it feels like wasted time, and it's annoying. And it's a really weird, annoying game design choice that people make. But it's becoming more and more common these days. And
and it's bizarre where there were times where Aloy would be telling me, oh, I can't go here and I can't do this. And it's just like, I'm just walking around. Like, I don't need you. I wasn't trying to go anywhere, and then that almost gave the game away. It was like, that must mean there's a thing here for a mechanic that I don't have yet. Like, the game didn't need to tell me that. I wasn't searching, and then vice versa with that, with that tool neck thing. Like, you should have been told.
Yeah, like, all that tall neck shouldn't have been there. It should have been there like towards the end of the game when you do get the pterosaur for the first time. Yeah. The fact that it's there in early game and you're just like the first thing that you come across, like, okay, how the hell do I get up to that thing? It's just this moment of confusion that you're going through constantly. And you're just constantly second guessing yourself. You're not in the moment. Which is a shame.
I remember running around its ankles and trying to jump on its feet and then just going, sod this.
Yeah.
Didn't last 30 minutes though.
And it's just frustrating. Like, because I'm one of these people when it comes to an open world game, and I did this with Elden Ring. That's why it took me like 160 hours to platinum that thing. Like, literally crawling through the map, doing all the stuff, like absolutely everything in the game. And then, but when you get to something in the game's like, you're not allowed to do that yet, sort of thing. It's like, why can't I do this thing yet? It's like, because we told you to, and we're going to give you something later. Wink, wink. And it's like, all right, thanks for ruining it, by the way, by making a puzzle out of it. So it's very bizarre to me. It's very strange. It just doesn't fit in this context. Like, do it in a game like Control, or do it in a game which is supposed to be a Metroidvania. Don't put it half-assed in the middle of an open world game, like, because it doesn't belong, in my opinion. It's really annoying to me because there's so much backtracking you have to do. Like, the first time you came across them red flowers in Horizon, them like on the walls or whatever, like the ones that you stab and they explode so you can actually get through the walls. And they don't give you that for like the first third of the game or something, and you just constantly, like, you see the icon
but
map,
the tutorial, in the tutorial area, they're everywhere. They're like, there's at least one or two, and it's just like, you didn't need to have them there. Like,
right, exactly. And it's like you see the icon on your map, not for the flowers. You see like a point of interest on the map, and you're like, all right, cool, I'll go over there and go and check that out. And you get over there, And I mean, I've spoken about this before on the podcast. You get over there and it's just like this annoying feel when you like you turn that corner and you see the red flowers and you're like, oh, for fuck, like, great, awesome, thanks for ruining my time again.
It's interesting. Yeah, the game is saying, here's something interesting. Oh, but it's interesting for later.
Yeah.
And it doesn't tell you. You don't know. It's just as interesting as all the other question marks.
Yeah, how about interesting for now? That'll be good, you know? Like, it's just weird to me. And I know with, like, games, and I know where they've gotten it from. They got it from Breath of the Wild. And it doesn't work in Breath of the Wild there either. It's just because Breath of the Wild is so universally sort of praised, they think that every single aspect of Breath of the Wild is a good thing to have, and that's what we should all put in our games now. And it's not the case whatsoever. There's a lot of flaws in the Breath of the Wild game that we can sort of look at and analyze and really dissect and think about how we can make better. But people just haven't chosen to do that. They've just instead said, well, we need to make a game like that, so let's make that. And it's just...
Ghost of Tsushima didn't do that. They never told you there was anything interesting worth doing unless you had the ability to do it.
Agree. And Ghost of Tsushima was a vastly superior game for a good reason. I don't know. It's very strange to me.
So yeah, that's what I wanted to have a chat about, and I know I'd get some juiciness out of you, Vin.
Yeah,
I know how to rile you up.
You do. You just ruffle my feathers, and you're like, all right, go.
Just wound you up and just watched you go. But that's what I needed. So because I'm not feeling very well.
Fair enough.
But what games have you been playing, Vin?
I've played a few games this week, but the one that I actually started and finished from start to scratch was Ghostwire Tokyo. This is the one that I sort of got through. Bethesda game. I was going to wait for this to come onto Game Pass because it's obviously a Bethesda game that's going to come out. Like, it's probably got a year exclusive on PlayStation. But I saw it on sale. I think it was like $30 or something. So it was like less than half price. It was something like 65% off. So I grabbed it and I thought, yeah, cool, I'll check this out. This is an aggressively average game, like in terms of like it's like a 7.5 out of 10, like specifically. Like it's really it's good, but it's not great. Like, it feels like a game from 2013, but in a good way.
Okay.
Yeah. If this game came out like, I don't know, like 7 years ago, I think it would have been really, really great. It's just in this day and age, like, there's some choices that it makes which are just sort of weird. But the main sort of idea is that you play as this guy that's got a sick sister, and you're basically trying to find her in the city of Tokyo, and you're running around, but it's not like the normal Tokyo. It's an open world game, but it's sort of inhabited by all these ghosts everywhere. Like, there's no other people that are alive in the game. Like, everyone's dead, pretty much. And
hence the Ghostwire aspect of the title.
Ghostwire Tokyo. But it like there are like remnants of like people still around. Like, they like absolutely everywhere. There's like piles of clothes on the floor where people have literally just disappeared on the spot and died and turned into ghosts or whatever. Like, at whatever point. So like, there's a lot of that sort of stuff. The one thing I will say is like the world in this, like, it's very well done. You can tell this is made by Japanese people, and it's made for Japanese people as well. Like, the detail that they sort of go into in the district of Shibuya, which I know very well because I actually proposed to my wife in Shibuya, which is kind of weird. But it was like, I remember us like, she was like, oh yeah, that's 109 is down there. If you just go down that street, like down there, and I'm like running around there, and like 109's there, and like, oh shit, like they actually did a really good job on this. Like, we can actually like find our way around without the map in some places. Which,
oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so it was really, really well done. And just going through the convenience stores and looking at all like the fake like products that they got on the shelves, which are like sort of similar to products that we remember from living there. Really, really well done. Which is, that sort of brings me to like the good and the bad point about the game, which is it's great for people that have visited there, and it's super interesting for us. But for people that haven't visited there, it probably just turn into this generic sort of background of quote unquote Japan. And that's about it, and it'll probably leave their sort of interest consciousness like really, really quickly. So that was something like I can imagine like a lot of other people playing this game would be probably knock it down a point just because they're not used to these surroundings. They're not used to seeing these things. It's not like it'd be like quite quaint for them like when they first saw it, but after a few hours of it, it would probably get a bit tedious and boring, and then it just turns into what the game is.
Are there no like tourist attractions that it features as well for non-visiting tourists?
Not really. Like, there's an instance where you go to Tokyo Tower, which is like just a massive red sort of radio tower. It kind of looks like the Alphaville Tower that's like in the middle of the city. That's there. Beyond that, though, it's very typical, like repetitive Tokyo, and it's great. Like they do it really, really well. It's just if you haven't been there or you've never lived there, it doesn't really like hit as hard. It wouldn't hit as hard for you. That's the sort of thing.
Okay.
So great setting if you've been there, but if you haven't, then you're probably just going to be like, so it's just Japan, like standard Japan. But yeah, I mean the main thing that you're sort of doing in this game though is you're running around killing ghosts with your magical powers. It's basically an FPS, which without guns, like you're actually like flicking magic with your fingers and stuff. Like I'm showing some gameplay on the screen right now, but there's like you're sort of like conjuring magic and throwing it and stuff, and it feels quite crunchy. It's not too bad. Feels pretty decent, but it's not amazing or anything. But it's good enough.
Similar to Adam and Eve with Bioshock games.
Yeah, exactly.
Have, like, abilities
right
that shoot out your fingers.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. It's a lot of that. It's a lot of like you're basically trying to stun the ghosts, and then you're trying to pull what they call cores out of them. And that sort of eradicates them completely. But there's a lot of spookiness about them. You can tell like each of the ghosts are sort of set on different points of society. Like there's the Oba-chan, like the old like lady that sits on the trains and stuff, and like the Japanese school kids that you can't see any of their bodies. It's just their uniforms sort of spinning around and kicking you and stuff. So some really, really creepy stuff. And there's a lot of great side quests in the game as well to do with Japanese sort of folklore and like yokai, like mythology and stuff. So if people know like Momotaro and like the Kappa and stuff like this, like if they know those stories, like they'll get a lot of fun out of this. But to the average Westerner, they'll probably be playing this like, this is really boring. Like I don't really understand what's happening. But to me, like it's great. Like I love that stuff. So yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. You're making it sound intriguing. Even though you're giving it a solid 7.5 out of 10.
Yeah, it's the problem that the reason why it gets a 7 out of 10 though is it's great for the first like 50% of the game because you're constantly like discovering new stuff. But then towards like after you get past like that halfway point now, it just flatlines and just nothing new is happening. They don't really introduce anything new. Like you have all the abilities, the story doesn't really go anywhere. The map just opens up wider and more icons of stuff that you've already done 50 times like appears, and you're just like, all right, I kind of just want it to end now. And like every single person I've read reviews after the fact because I like to do that after I finish the game, and just every single person sort of mentioned the same thing. It's like, yeah, the latter half of the game you're just like doing the same stuff and you'll end up just rushing to the end because you really can't be bothered with any of it anymore. So yeah, it's the pacing is off, I guess. Like that's the best way to sort of describe it. But an enjoyable game. Like I'm glad that I picked it up for half price. Christ, if I paid 70 for this, I wouldn't have been very happy. That's for sure.
70 quid. Oh my god. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, I mean it's going to be on Game Pass at some point because it's a Bethesda game. It's literally the last Bethesda game to come out on PlayStation. So you gotta doff your hat at that, I guess.
Yeah. It's a record. It's like it's going to go down in the history books.
Yeah, it's history. So there you go. Yeah, it's a shame, but yeah, I mean, I had fun with it. It didn't blow me away. wasn't terrible. It wasn't amazing. Like I wasn't completely, yeah. It's very, very part of the course. So if you're into Japanese stuff though, go for it. But if you're not, then don't bother because you'll probably like accuse it of being Ubisoft-fied and all that sort of stuff, but just like it just opens up with icons and stuff, and it's basically a chore list after a while. But yeah, a lot of interesting side quest stories, like I mentioned, and sort of carries the game. Yeah.
Anything else you've been playing or want to play?
I've been playing a couple of little bits. Like I've dropped a couple of games just purely because I just like I'm trying to get more into that habit of like if I get a couple of hours into a game and I'm not enjoying it, like I'm just dropping them and being like, yeah, I'm not going to play that. I'm good sort of thing. That's not for me. And it happened a couple of days ago, but I played a game called Ashen. I don't know if you've ever heard of this. It's from like 2018. Like it came out in like December of 2018, so it was a while ago. And it's sort of like a Souls-like that's like a low poly style game, very much my style. I love this sort of look, like the way this game looks is just awesome. I really like it. It's got like that sort of indie-esque. It's a typical Souls-like where you're sort of crawling through dungeons and going throughout this open world. It kind of feels like Elden Ring in a lot of ways. Like the way that it is open world, it was sort of like the Elden Ring before Elden Ring. Everything about this game I love. Like I love the combat, I love like the world, the way the world looks, the ambience, like everything about it. I really love this game. However, the character controller literally made me uninstall this game. Like it just really bad. Like absolutely, it feels like you're trying to shift a wardrobe. It's not fun.
That's a shame. Yeah, I'm watching the trailer. It looks really cool. It looks like a toon shader Elden Ring sort of thing.
Yeah, and like long before Elden Ring came out. And yeah, I like everything about this game, but just the character controller just ruins it. Like just the way that it feels to move the character around, it just feels really chunky and it doesn't feel very responsive. Like the when you jump forward, it's not momentum based. It's sort of like set amount based. So if you're like doing a slow jog and then you push jump, like the character will just suddenly like leap ahead like way further than they should. And it just doesn't feel right. It just feels awful. And like I got to this point because I figured out like in the game you can't swim either, which is annoying. But I was on the edge of a river and I was jumping across to get to an item that they sort of like teased at me, like, hey, if you jump over here, then you get the item. And I jumped over there, got the item, but when I was jumping back, I fell a bit short, and I was like, oh crap, and I fell into the water, and that's how I figured out like you couldn't swim. I was like, all right.
Because you died in the water?
Yeah. So I was like, that sucks.
Okay.
So then I went back to my body, like typical Souls, like you're trying to pick up everything that you've sort of dropped. I went back to where I was, jumped across the river to get the souls, but as I was jumping across, like my head clipped like the top of a rock and they just stopped in midair and slid down and went back into the water and I lost everything. It was like an hour's worth of souls or whatever. And I was like, yep, not playing this. Screw this. And it was just purely because of the character controller. It was just like, yeah, this is not enjoyable. There's no way I can't judge that distance. And you're sort of making this important, like this jumping mechanic quite important to the game because you use it a lot. But it just didn't feel good. So it's a shame. But yeah, hopefully other people have sort of found enjoyment out of it because I loved everything else about it. It was just that one thing, which is a shame.
That is a shame. That sucks. That I don't know why it reminds me, but it reminds me of Soul Reaver games because I saw an article about, again, more Soul Reaver. Like, oh, could we be getting a Soul Reaver remake or Soul Reaver digital version? But I remember that felt like a wardrobe and yet having similar problems. But that was from a game from like 20 years ago. So
right, yeah, exactly, and
15 or so.
Yeah, it's such a damn shame. Like, it annoys me, like, because everything else about that game is great, and I'm pretty sure like the character controller is the only reason why a lot of people have sort of moved away from this thing because everything else is awesome.
Yeah, but you could just buy a good character controller and mod it. I don't understand why we're having this trouble now.
Yeah, very very odd, very very
is
strange.
It like pride of like, oh, we need to integrate all these systems, which means we need to have our own character controller. That. I can't think of why.
Yeah, I mean, I've made my own character controller before, and I know it takes a lot of work, but it's the core mechanic of these sorts of games. Like, if you're going to get anything right, it's how you are moving the character around and how you control and stuff. Like, if you don't figure that out, then it's going to be, like, the rest of your game is sort of detrimental. So it's surprising to me that was the thing that sort of held it back more than anything, because that's the first thing that you test. That's the thing that you're constantly playing with and constantly like using. Like, you would have thought by the end of production they would have been a bit like, yeah, maybe we should tighten these controls up a little bit. Like, this doesn't feel great, sort of thing. So
oh well.
Yeah,
I'm definitely going to get Game Pass again soon because I need to play more games. Well, I feel like I need to play more games. I want to play more games, and there's some cool stuff I want to still keep playing, like Death's Door.
Oh, such a good game. I know it isn't for everyone, but Jesus Christ, that game is so good. Oh God, it annoys me that more people don't play that game.
Yeah, I want to get back on that. I've been thinking about it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, it's.
So that's a good review. Like, played it for a few hours, and it keeps jumping back into my brain like, oh, you should play Death's Door again. Like, yes, I should play Death's Door again.
Yeah, I mean, outside of that, speaking of Game Pass, the last thing that I wanted to sort of mention, I guess, was that the PlayStation Plus relaunch finally happened in the US and North America, so I got access to that because I was also signed up to PlayStation Now, which I'd totally forgotten about. I got automatic access to PlayStation Premium, which is absolutely 100% not worth the money whatsoever. Do not pay for Premium. It's awful. Like, it's not good. It's not worth your money. Don't do it. Everyone should stick to the middle tier, which is the... so there's Essential... No, wait. I've already forgotten them. Whatever the middle tier... Like, so there's Essential, and then there's Premium at the other end. Whatever the middle one is. Get that one. Because, like, you get access...
Middle, yeah.
Yeah, you get access to all, like, the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 games. But then PlayStation Premium is strictly for the PlayStation 3 back catalog, which is only streaming, and then they've got, I think it's like 7 PlayStation 1 games, and they're not great games. I think like the one that was added to North America was Resident Evil 1, the director's cut. By far the worst Resident Evil game out of all of them, like hands down. It's
7. That's not a lot, is it?
No, there really wasn't that many. It was just really strange. And they've removed like the Metal Gear Solid games off the PlayStation Network as well, which is bizarre to me. Like, I don't really understand why they've done that. Like, they're not on PlayStation Now anymore. They were. Like, you could play Metal Gear Solid 2, 3, and 4, and they're just gone now. Like, the only Metal Gear Solid game you can play is Metal Gear Solid 5, which I wanted to sort of play through, and I had to bust out. Like, last night I got frustrated because I wanted to play Metal Gear Solid, and I ended up pulling out my PS3 and plugging that into the TV. I was like, screw it. Like, I'm just going to not subscribe to PlayStation Now, and I'm just going to, like, I'm just going to buy the games outright that I want to play because the service is bad. It's really bad. Yeah, it's not great. They need a lot more, and they need a lot more PlayStation 1 games, a hell of a lot more, and a lot more PlayStation 2 games. And they've got so goddamn many. And they just...
Yeah, they've got so many gems, man.
Then they're just ignoring them. Like, the fact that I can't play Metal Gear Solid 1 on my PlayStation 5 is insane. It's insane.
Yeah.
Like, that, I can play that thing on a Retro Pi, for Christ's sake, and you can't put this on PlayStation 5. Like, give me a break. Like,
and that's one of the greatest video games of history. It's like it's in the history books. It's going to be there.
Yeah.
And you can't play on the PS5. It's just madness.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's like my 3rd favorite game of all time. So it's just crazy to me that it's not available. Like, it's a PlayStation exclusive, and you don't have this thing. It's sort of nuts to me. But yeah, that's Rampage over about PlayStation.
Rampage
Premium.
over. Do you remember in the old days it came on a double disc, and you had to like take out disc 1 and insert disc 2, and it was like, wow, this must be a really good game because it's got 2
Final
discs.
Fantasy 9 had 4. Final Fantasy 9 had 4 discs.
Or was it? Could have been 3 actually.
No, Metal Gear Solid only had 2 discs.
Had 2. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Final Fantasy had 4. Okay, well that just tells me they weren't very good at putting stuff onto disc.
No, it's just, I think it was mostly like FMVs back then, like the full sort of videos that they had. And then in Metal Gear Solid, they had all the voice acting. So there was a lot of reasons to have those 2 things, I guess. But yeah, nuts. Like, PlayStation Premium's got a long way to go, though. A hell of a long way to go. Don't invest in it yet. Anyone that's listening to this, like Europeans as well, same thing. Even worse for Europeans because you guys get the PAL versions of everything, so everything's only running at 50 FPS instead of 60.
I heard that. Yeah, and it's similar price, isn't it?
Yeah,
for both
price.
European. What's all that about? Is it something to do with the TVs?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's everything to do with the language, I'd assume, more than anything, because the PAL versions came out, because PAL versions were distributed all around Europe, and they would just pack in all of the different language options in those versions. So, so they would just upload them, but they just assumed that, people in the PAL region still want the PAL versions of the game that only run at 50 because that's what they're used to, sort of thing. But we're a bit wiser these days since obviously the internet and things like that, and we've sort of had access to the 60 FPS version, so people much prefer those. But yeah,
I can imagine. Yep, that sucks.
Yeah. So, but Sony has said that they're patching in a version. They're going to patch in the 60 FPS versions later on. But when that's happening, it's anyone's guess. Who knows? But yeah,
the launch with 7 PS1 titles. It's not enough. Just a bit silly.
Yeah, it's not enough. It's absolutely not enough. Like because like the PlayStation Classic, when that came out, it had like 20 games on it, and I was expecting that at least that. And people are really excited about the fact that PlayStation Classic would also include like PlayStation Portable games, and everyone's like, "Wow, PlayStation Portable games! Like, it's going to be great on PlayStation 5." There is currently one PlayStation Portable game in the whole catalog for PlayStation Premium. One, and it's not a great one. It's just weird. It's like it feels like a trial. It doesn't feel like the full thing yet for premium. The other tiers are great. Like PlayStation Plus, like the first tier or whatever, like that's exactly the same as what it was. But the second tier is great. Like there's a lot of good sort of PlayStation 4 and 5 games in there. Well worth your money to invest in there. Like there's Ghost of Tsushima, there's Death Stranding, there's the most recent Spider-Man game. Some good stuff. So I
might get it. I might get that then because I wanted to play Death Stranding.
Yeah. The director's cut Death Stranding as well. So
yeah. Because I'm going to rip that game off basically.
Yeah. It's a good game. It is a good game. Like I had a lot of jokes lined up for that game when I first played it, but then I actually played it and I was like, this is actually pretty good. Like it's one of those games that you should laugh at because you're just a postman in Iceland, but it's you actually can't get angry out of it because of how damn relaxing it is. But yeah. Oh well. But yeah, that's everything I've sort of played, I guess. Like I've sort of rattled off a lot of stuff there, but
yeah. So yeah, let us know in the comments section what you've been playing.
Please.
What are your thoughts on the games we've been commenting on? Are we correct? Are we wrong? And tell us why, please.
Yeah, we're always wrong, Chris, to be fair.
Yeah.
And also wish Chris some well wishes. I'm sure he's
yeah. I need your sympathy to get me well quicker.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what the doctor ordered, right? It's like, yep, you need rest, orange juice, and a lot of attention. So
podcast and attention.
Podcast and attention. That's it. But yeah, if you did enjoy this episode, then please like and subscribe. And as the aforementioned, like please comment, let us know what you've been up to, what you've been playing. We would like to hear everything that you guys have been up to. I know it's been a bit of a dry season in terms of like video games in general. So I'd be curious to see like what games people are sort of picking off in their backlogs at this point. If you do want to see more, then please subscribe on YouTube. You can like us. You can find us on any of your podcast services, your favorite podcast services like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that sort of good stuff. Google Podcasts, everywhere else. We're on Anchor, so we're absolutely everywhere. We are the herpes of the internet. We will be there if you look for us. Don't go look. Just don't go looking for herpes.
Is that what makes herpes herpes? If you look for it, you'll find it.
Maybe. I mean, if you look for herpes, you're probably going to find it. To be fair, if you look for it specifically.
So where can we find your social media, Vin?
You can find me on Twitter. I am at Hillfort Games. I post a lot about my indie game on there, Long Gone. You can also wishlist Long Gone on Steam. It's been going pretty well recently, which is great. Really appreciate all the support, so please keep it going. You make Solo Des very happy when you wishlist their stuff on Steam. But yeah, other than that, you can find me on ArtStation for my concept art, which is at Vin Hill Art. You can find me on there. All the stuff that I do for Ubisoft is on there. Outside of that, yeah, just follow me on Twitter. It's the best place, I guess. Chris, where can people find you, good sir?
So you can find me on Twitter at Acrylic Pixel. My YouTube channel is Acrylic Pixel. I've put some synthesizer videos up if you like synthesizers. I've bought an OP1 Field, so I've done some videos about that, which is a synthesizer. I'm making my indie game Focus Find, which you can wishlist on Steam. Thank you very much. And I've got a Patreon as well to help fund it. If you search for Acrylic Pixel or Focus Find, you should find it.
Sounds good. And yeah, before we close out, I have to give an applaud and a congratulations to Chris for strategically and tactically like muting his mic every time he went to cough in this episode, and you didn't hear it once. Well played. That was very, very well done, sir. Professional.
I think there were some things I didn't say. We'll see when I come to edit this.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
We'll see. But thank you, Vin. I appreciate it.
Well, to see your mouth move and then you realising that you're not on. You're like...
Yeah.
Well, if you're listening to the audio version of this, then you'll never know. So it's all good. So good. Anyway, until next time, guys. We'll catch you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.